I always try to bring a few poems that I'm kind of terrified to read, and from this title, you can tell why. I masturbate, then pray to God. I'm gonna take a sip. This is why I have to take a sip for. I masturbate and pray to God to forgive me. I masturbate and hate myself after scrolling endlessly through porn. I never find exactly what it is that I'm looking for because there's no category for my type of desire. So I keep searching for a scenario somewhat sensual, not too violent, not too fake, with a story, some sense of plot development. And I keep clicking vulgar search terms that never satisfy. I keep working till I master the house slave kink within me. She is looking out of the window from the big house across a search field with Is My Body. On the verge, she thinks about running away but does not dare. I'm only here because one, maybe two slaves stayed. Resistance isn't always about pushing back, but perhaps submitting to a field of cotton, notating the sublime cottage cheese color scheme there, woven through brown choking branches like meaty Caucasian hands, clasping dark throats, groping thick brushwork in plein air into the wild gushing with a freer black belly. I look like a human, so human, my face struck by artificial light, laptop light, graphic light, leaking liquid crystals, frosted red, green, blue, chromatics, throbbing until I pinged, until I rubbed. I swiveled racial slurs and curse words out of my zonk clit, arcing the ladle of my lower body by tipping the invective juice and jive. And isn't this how you empty the body's cup anyway, by needling the pleasure buttons? After I scroll through all the porn, I masturbate and pray to God. After the shame-hate spiral comes like a call I deny, I send the voicemail to my chest and never check it, but I don't delete it either, as it descends like a zap of divine punishment, smearing some version of God's gloppy guilt. And yeah, I dislike myself for the hating, I dislike myself for the watching another body wriggle inside another littler window, another torso that is not mine. I stand between two windows as if two mirrors, infinitely appearing into the wild senses splayed by pink pleasure and bondage, where I am the house slave again, wearing an iron muzzle. I can barely speak or eat, but I keep slipping little slivers of glass into my master's food, my psyche split by church and salt. I'm praying for God to forgive me because there's always a moment during my video clickbait hole where I see something that doesn't make me feel quite so good. And I'm trying to push back on that earlier word something, which contains all the ineffableness of language. Sure, a well-placed placeholder word can pop, but I want to make sure I'm not being lazy. Maybe I can try to fetch a metaphor or a simile or both. Okay, so during my video clickbait hole, I search to find unmitigated pleasure, like when I fly, I fear I will die every time, and my therapist tells me to accept this out-of-control fate to end, not with desire, but with a focus on my breath. I feel immense joy when I land, looking at my survival, a warm whispering, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm horny and still waiting to disembark. I thank the flight attendants, each one, I look inside their eyes, I leave the long coffin with wings. And right now there's a quote bobbing around my head, like two splashing fish from Robert Frost, which I found on Matthew Sabruder's syllabus, which reads, what I'm pointing at, unless you're at home in the metaphor, unless you've had your proper poetical education in the metaphor, you're not safe anywhere. Because you're not at ease with figurative values. You do not know the metaphor and its strength and its weakness. You do not know how far you may expect to ride it and when it may break down with you. You're not safe in science, you're not safe in history. And then there's this excerpt from the beginning of Robin Cost Lewis's poem Landscape. Pleasure is black. I no longer imagine where my body stops or begins. Skin transparent, face speckled by the spit of several centuries. Oh, and there's this other quote from Maggie Nelson, on page 89 from the Argonauts. Yet I know I have what it takes to put my body on the line if and when it comes down to it, this knowledge is a red-hot shape inside me. And if you allow me just one more quote, I promise this will be the last one, and I need to share it because it took me a long time to find this passage, where I've been thinking about this old man's nasty thumb since college, because it pierced something, there's that word again, unsettling inside me, another birthmark on my brain. I can't stop thinking about Heat and Christine's puke-stained bathing suit from Toni Morrison's Love. It wasn't the arousal was not altogether unpleasant that the girls could not talk about it. It was the other thing, the thing that made each believe without knowing why that this particular shame was different and could not tolerate speech, not even in the language that had invented for speakers. Would the inside dirtiness leak? And with that idea of safety, spit, and shame, a chorus of safety, spit, shame, I arrive at the edge of my longing by refusing the unpunctuated freedom before me. I can and can't go further. I close my computer, denying myself yet again, my body on the verge, yes, digital blue lit throbbing. The house slave clink within me is complicated but freer. As the search field folds in on itself, I erase my history with just one click. No one knows who I really am. I vanish each time I touch myself.